Hi, and welcome to the new series of newbie series. Now, I'm going to create some newbie series for you that struggles with getting started with hacking. So, in this video, I already prepared a room for us to hack. I'm not really going to talk about where the room is or what the name of it is. So, basically, we're going to learn from a black hat perspective. So, I will teach you how to hack this particular machine right here. Every machine is different. Every machine have a different way of being hacked. And I want to say that, and this is a disclaimer, I'm not hacking anything real. It is a virtual machine that is up somewhere, and basically I'm gonna do my best to talk as much as I can, to explain as much as I can. And this video is gonna be longer than normal because I'm gonna get into a lot more different facts and how to do things using the tools, what are my thoughts, and so on. So I just guess let's get started right away. I already took a note of the IP address and I put it in the document right there. We have it, 10.10.31.39. It's also an internal IP, as you can see. So we're not hacking anything real. This is again for educational purposes. So this is the IP address. We know nothing of it. The very first thing you're gonna do when you start hacking a server, you have the IP address, is thinking recon, scanning, and then do last point called exploit. There are different things you do in these three phases, and you can also make more phases than three. You can also get something like post exploitation, which is what you do after you exploit it on server. Or you can even go as far as something called persistence, which is in turn also a part of post-exploitations, but persistence is more how can you get back to the machine, how can you make sure that you have the same connection to the machine. Again, if you go away, I'm not going to do all the different steps one more time in order to get a connection to the machine that you are hacking. Alright, so we have an issue right now. We know nothing about this machine right there, and we're going to do something called reconnaissance. Now, in reconnaissance, when you have the IP address already right now, you cannot really go ahead and do what I typically call as passive reconnaissance, because that is going to be searching on Google and so on. But let's talk about passive reconnaissance just for a bit or two. When you do passive reconnaissance, you go to your browser and you open that. For example, you put in the, well, it's debated, but I would say it's passive still because you are generating true human possible made traffic by just visiting the website, clicking on it, doing nothing crazy, just using your website as it is intended. Of course, you're going to do that from a different IP address than the one you're going to perform the pen test on, to make it even more passive. Alright, so while you did that and gathered the most information you could get, like for example, are they using a CMS system, the version of it, can you see anything by inspecting the source code by right clicking on the web page and saying view page source code, can you see any JavaScript that's interesting, there's any session cookies, any network traffic, any HTTP headers, any local storage, check all these things out. They are free, it's on client side, it's very passive, they cannot see that you are looking at that, which is also, you are allowed to do that because it is sent to you. Alright, so next thing you can do in the passive reconnaissance is go ahead and check out Google. For example, check out Pastebin if you have any scanner for that, check out the DNS, check out what is it called, the web page where you share code, Stack Overflow, and different other web pages. You can check them all, look them up. Well, is there anything on that that's gonna give you the edge on knowledge, any information posted at some point by a programmer, not protected? Anything that's gonna give you an edge is valuable information for you in your passive reconnaissance. Now, going away from that, going more over to the part where we're gonna do actual stuff to the server, we're gonna try and do some actual active reconnaissance on the server, on the IP address. So what I'm gonna do here, go ahead and do now, is what I typically call a correct way of doing and conducting a pen test, and that would be of taking the IP address right there, go ahead and open a new terminal window and we're gonna stick to this for now, and I'm gonna zoom in a bit so you can better see what's going on. The very first thing you could do is to perform a standard ping scan to make sure that the connection is up on the server. You could do that by doing a classic SP nmap scan. That's going to perform a standard ping scan. Entering that is going to give you a report back, that the host is up. Right there, one host up. That is the first thing you're going to look for, right? You're going to look for that and say, okay, so the host is up. We have a somewhat okay 0.041 seconds of latency. Well, for a virtual machine, I guess this is great. You can also go ahead and do this just to clarify. It is okay for me to do a ping on Google. We could do that just for the fun of it, not that we're gonna go ahead and poke on Google. I'm not saying we're gonna do that, but just to give you an idea what is going on. Google's also gonna respond back, actually with a faster response, and this is probably because that the servers that I'm hacking up against, which are virtual on the internal IP address, is not the same kind of resources behind it than the Google servers. But as you can see, you're gonna get these kind of different, things back. You will get the one host up still, and you will get some IP address, which is of course because I wrote google.com and not the actual IP address, which is this right there. So if I took this IP address right there and put it into a browser, we can just try that, for example, and there we would be directed to Google, because it would be fine for us to just use a standard IP address, but not all servers allow that. Okay, so, alright, I'm gonna go ahead and say the very first scan we did was the nmap scan, and we verified that the host is up, and that is actually what we're gonna do. The host is up. The next thing we're gonna do is, and by the way, go ahead and save these results. Now, before I go further, you already have questions, and this is the way that I really want you to follow this video, is thinking, I do have some questions, write them down, and make sure that you actually do your research as well. The very first question is, what is nmap? Because we didn't necessarily talk too much about the individual tool. So in this video, because it's a newbie video, I will talk about nmap. Nmap is a tool that's basically is a shorthand for network mapper. It is a scanning tool. It is just a tool that sends a lot of traffic to the specified host, and it's going to try and verify something. Now in this particular case, I used the flag called tag S capitalized P, which is the same as a normal ping. When I say normal ping, I basically mean writing the command like that and pressing enter on the IP address just like this. And that's gonna give us a somewhat response back in around the same time, 0.40 milliseconds, which is around the same time as you saw before. So nmap is a tool that can do many different things. Now, I'm not gonna poke on all different things in this video because it's a newbie video, so I'm only gonna touch upon the very basics on nmap. I'm going to try and split all the different things it can do into different executions of the nmap command, so we can see how the results, what they give us, and how to use it, and get a grasp how fast it is. Now, we're going to use nmap a lot more before we go ahead and continue. Next thing we're going to use nmap for is to further verify which kind of services is actually on the port, on the IP address. We also need to verify which ports are open on the IP address, and we also need to verify the operating system which is running on the IP address. I say IP address, we can also say the server, doesn't really matter, it's the same thing. So just gonna tell you right now that many people probably would tend to say the target or the server we are hacking. It doesn't really matter what you call it. What is important is that you are consistent and you say the same thing in your industry, in your work, your job, for me right now, this is an educational video, so I will basically say anything to make sure that you understand the topic. Alright, so running the nmap command, the SP flag will ping it. Now let's go ahead and clear the screen and run our next nmap command. Our next nmap command is going to be the command that will verify the top most commonly known 1,000 ports. Okay, so when I say commonly and top most 1,000 ports, I basically mean that those are the ports that are commonly and mostly used on servers. It's not an incremental 1 to 1,000, it is just the most common port. There are a maximum amount of more ports on any server of 65,535 ports. So that's a lot of ports, alright? So when you press enter right now on this command right here, you're basically telling nmap to scan the target and do a standard nmap scan, which is going to try and find open ports on the top most 1,000 ports. Alright, let's go ahead and press enter. It's going to be pretty fast this time, because we are on a server that only got 2 ports open right now. Now, you probably just heard it. I said 65,535 different ports, right? But I also talked about the most commonly used 1,000 ports. Now, we got a response back saying not shown 998 closed TCP ports. Connection refused. And then we have 2 open ports right there. As you can see, we've got port 22 on TCP. It's open and is guessing, nmap is guessing, since it's port 22, that we have SSH running on this server. Now, we can also see port 80, which it guessed to be HTTP. This is commonly known as the normal port for those 2 services, without any other flags or argument to the nmap scan. We will not get any more than a guess from it. So it's basically saying, well, I see, so you have SSH and HTTP, which is basically a guess of the port's service. So now that we have that, we should probably take note of this and just, copy paste it and go to the document of ours and paste it in. I'm gonna do a margin right there, because then it's easy to see which phase we're in. The next thing you can do right now, and just there are many different ways of doing it, especially also using nmap, is to verify the actual services running on the ports. So what you're going to do now is you can of course just press up arrow in Linux, because, well, it's in history, and then you can add on the flag of small s capitalized V, which is the flag that's going to verify the different versions of software running on the 2 ports we have as verified open. Pressing enter on that, it's going to take a bit more time than before, because we're actually trying to communicate with the services. So it took around 8 seconds, 7.65, and we got a lot of information back. As before, we got the same information, the top and the bottom, but the most important information is the one right there. We can see that port 22 is running as we thought it was, running OpenSSH, which is the name of the software. That is the version. And in most occasions and sometimes going to add on extra information. Now, the extra information is something that is in the header of the SSH service, and it tells us that it's a good chance that we have an Ubuntu Linux server running in the background that has this software installed. And again, we notice that port 80 is Apache, which is the name of the web server installed on Linux server. It's called HTTPD, and that is the version. And again, it tells us this is probably a Linux Ubuntu. And some extra information about the operating system is that this is probably a Linux kernel operation system. So we can take this information one more time. Let me just copy paste it. There we go. And we can paste it in. And basically we can of course write, this was the SP scan and this was the SV scan. And what we're going to do now is go ahead and do the capitalized O scan, which is the operating system scan. So we will go ahead and verify which kind of operating system there is. Let me clear screen, press up arrow, do capitalized O and press enter. It tells us that we need to give the command of nmap root privileges in order to run, because it's going to do some kernel stuff. So do that, sudo, and write your password for the sudo user. The operating system scan can take a bit longer time than the normal port scan we just did with the 1,000 most commonly used ports. And depending on the complexity of the scan, we're going to get a little more of this and that back. Typically, we're going to get a lot of this. We're going to get a big chunk of a TCP fingerprint. And we can go ahead and check this out, right? And we can see that it does say Linux and it's a 64-bit architecture, and we're basically just looking for stuff that's gonna verify this is a Linux server. I would say it's a pretty good chance, because Linux servers got these kind of services. Let me show one more time. OpenSSH and HTTPD, that is Linux stuff. Apache is also in most occasion Linux stuff. So I would say it's a pretty good chance this is a Linux server. We could go ahead and copy paste all this fingerprint stuff and paste it right there, and then save it. Now there are ways for us to go ahead and post this. So if the OS detection is performed, and was, and we did not get any directional ideas of what it was from nmap, we could go ahead and post it to nmap submit and tell what it was, and then they eventually will put it in the software, so we can get a more clear response. Now, since this is a virtual server running on a virtual environment somewhere in the world, I'm not really gonna hassle with doing that, because it'll be a waste of time. So using the capital O scan, which is also the operating system we're gonna go ahead and detect with nmap, we will also get the open port back, because that is just a part of nmap. It will be excluded using the SP. I mean, not the SP, it's going to be the normal scan, so that's just a normal scan, sorry for that. And the SP scan will not get the result back with the open ports. So now we did that, we got some pretty good idea what's going on the server. We can go ahead and perform our next step, which is the scanning step, because we can do no further reconnaissance on the system by just continuing to do more scans, because we did our reconnaissance using nmap. What we can go ahead now and do is to verify whether there's a web page up or not. That would be a step before scanning. So we can take the IP address, get a browser open, and paste that into the browser, and you're gonna get something like that, right? And if you are known to my channel, you probably know where this server is located and hosted. And honestly, I don't think we should waste too much time on contemplating about that. But basically just this is the actual web page. What I talked about is now we can do some more reconnaissance of the web page, and we can do that by starting to right click on the web page and say view page source. Zooming in and look at this and say this looks kind of weird. We do have a little bit of nothing, a JavaScript. We're gonna zoom in on that, and it looks like nothing. No reason to look at anything like that. It's just a waste of time, and we have nothing going on right here. The thing we could do is go ahead and try and access robots.txt. Robots.txt is a file that's going to be put in the root on the domain. We'll tell the search engines to please do not check out these different URLs, and in some cases we can get some clues to where that is and what it is. It could be admin panels and so on. So we're interested in finding that. It can also be a quite good idea sometimes to do a sitemap.xml, because depending on which system you're running or how the system administrators created their CEO, which is search engine optimization, has nothing to do with hacking at all. It could actually present valuable URLs and paths to the site through a sitemap. Other things you can go ahead and try is typical admin URL, and I would definitely also try, uploads, because this is something that usually is there. If there's an upload and people call it that, in this particular example, we did get a hit, so take note of that. Go back to your document, go down here to somewhere and do a web recon tag and go in and say we found that URL, and just continue adding on to the document. Really just what you're gonna do is to add on to the document all the time. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm suspicious that can we get access to that particular functionality that can upload files, because if we can upload files to this particular path right here, and depending on what we can upload, we can do different kind of things, well, then we can probably find a malicious way to get our initial foothold on the server, which is what we actually would like to do. Anyways, let's get back to the reconnaissance of the web page and say any more path that I would try. Yeah, well, you can also try something like administrator and stuff like that. I don't really think you're gonna get much of hits with that, but we were logging one time. What I'm gonna do now is go back and press F12. You can also do that by right clicking and doing inspect. It would be the same. So let me close this down, say right click and inspect. It will also open this inspect panel. I'm gonna zoom in on it and going to network tab and casually just refreshing. Gotta take the root request with the slash and just check out the different kind of headers. I can see it's running HTTP, that's good. And I see different kind of headers here, not anything that interesting. I do see that they have a PHP session, which is interesting just to note of it, and that there is a PHP session, but for now we're just gonna forget about it because we have no ties to where it's been generated. And we don't see any domains or anything going on right here. We can also click the other ones. It wouldn't really matter that much, but the same thing one more time. Going to the storage tab next time to verify the different one here. We do verify that we have a PHP session, which is on the cookie part, which is great. And check the other ones, they're empty. And from here, you can go ahead to the console if that is what you want to do, and try and do stuff and interact with the JavaScript. If there's any JavaScript to interact with, then this is the place to call functionalities directly from the console. The inspector is also quite nice sometimes because you can go ahead and check out the different kind of body and headers in JavaScript, and sometimes you can see extra stuff that you cannot see in the actual website, because some of the things on the website is loaded by JavaScript, and also see it, you need to see it in the inspector, which is something you definitely need to take note of when you are doing a reconnaissance of the web page. Now we are back again to the part where we need to realize we need to go to the scanning phase, because we did what we could. We found a valuable URL. I would say it's interesting. And we also noticed that we have SSH, and we know things we can do with the SSH is we could go ahead and check out the version of this and search for it. And the way to do that is to take the name and the version, go to Google. I'll just go to Google right there, paste it in, and add on the word exploit. Just like that. Sometimes you will find different kind of hits. I see stuff like, username enumeration and other things that could be interesting to look into. What I will also go ahead and verify is on the exploit DB, you can go ahead and paste the OpenSSH in and the version of it, and slowly just removing the version amount of it from the back. Let me show you what I mean. From 1 and the P and then the 6 and the dot, of course, and then you're going to version 7. And the things you can see on version 7, and pay attention to it, says 7.6, is that there are some things you can do username enumeration below 7.7, which is fine. And this is another version that is not there, and it does seem like that we have nothing crazy here going on. I know it's going to be a bit much for you probably right now saying what's going on, but you're going to trust me when I say that, username enumeration is not that interesting, because it could be something we need to do if nothing else representing itself as an actual way into the server. But I would say as a last resort in most cases is stuff like username enumeration or brute forcing. The things you're gonna try first is to find stuff on the software version, and you can do that by checking out exploit DB, or Google in some cases could also be a great way to check out. The very first script we got right there probably looks interesting to you, and it does say the same exploit.py, but what is it, right? It doesn't hurt to just click it, and if you then zoom in a bit, it does say username enumeration and talks about this CVE right there, which is the Common Weakness Enumeration Database 2018 15,473. That is the number. So we can go ahead and copy paste this and just see that it was highlighted down here below. So it is the same script they have, maybe not the exact same code, but it's the same CVE, so it's the same kind of exploitation. So even though that it might look different and fun, it's not really different at all. So you're just gonna check it out, and that's really it. Next level stuff would be for you to try and analyze this Python code right here. And it wouldn't be that difficult. Most of this code and exploits are wrapper code that just basically handle you to do the command interaction to make it easy for you. In most occasions, you can go ahead and scroll down and find a URL or something to interact directly with. Now, I'm just scrolling a bit. Not always it is easy to find. And of course, this is a OpenSSH, so there's no URL, I'm sorry for that, but it is sending data to the OpenSSH, probably trying to do something with it and get some data back, and then verify whether the username you're trying to verify, if it's there or not, exists on the server. Now, not wasting too much time on this part right there, I'm gonna go back to the document one more time. And we did look at this OpenSSH. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there's very, very, very little chance you're going to find anything on this particular service right there. So I'm going to go ahead and open a Google and paste it in and write the word of exploit. And you will see stuff like, there are things you could do, but 2.4.49, yeah, let's just click it because it is on exploit DB, and it does say like this kind of server, and you got something called path traversal and remote code execution. Now, it is different version from the one we have, and this is a particular new one. It's 2021, and it does say it's tested on that version. It doesn't mean that because we have a different version that this is gonna work, but I would definitely say this would be a shot worth to try. And this is just a normal bash script, and we can see that it does a lot of blah blah blah, but in the end it's basically just requesting the CGI bin and injecting a lot of these different kind of, URL encoded strings. And I'm just trying to see, the command would be curl path, echo type, blah blah blah. Targets could be these kind of things. Yes, so we would put stuff in the target file, and that would be put somewhere. I'm not really gonna read this script too much. We can go ahead and go back and say, let's go and search this up, because it does look interesting. I'm just gonna show you what to do about it. So we're gonna paste in all this, and we're gonna find this particular exploit from before. Now, removing the 4.9 to just 2.4, we can go ahead and check out that there was quite a deal interesting trouble with Apache version 2.4.49 and 2.4.50. They all got remote code execution. Now, remote code execution is the win. If you're ever gonna find that as a pen tester, you will be like, yes, I won right now. Now, it's gonna be difficult for me in the newbie video to talk about what that is in detail, so I'm gonna skip it. The version we had was 2.4.29, and we could, for example, say that, but there's nothing here on 2.4.29, and our is also called Apache HTTPD, which is interesting enough. HTTPD, write the D on it, and you're gonna get some different results right now. So you're definitely gonna go ahead and pay attention to the names of the services, and this was me showing you that it's easy to get down the wrong slide if you're not using the exact words, which is also why pen testing is a difficult topic. And I honestly understand that it's gonna take a while, to get there. It's gonna help you if you have a teacher to help you, online teacher or real, doesn't really matter, but just someone that can help you in the process of this. All right, so now that we've verified the different kind of versions, not really interesting for us, we're gonna go ahead and do what we call scanning, and we're gonna scan the actual web page right now, because we still have one thing left in our arsenal. We know that there are interesting URLs, so there might be other interesting URLs. But how long will it take me to take this URL right there, paste it in, and begin guessing different kind of URLs? Is that a URL? Is that a URL? And is that a URL? It's gonna take ages. So there's a tool for us we can use, and that tool is called GoBuster. GoBuster is a tool we can go ahead and call directly and say, I want to do GoBuster dir. Let me just see if we can make this a bit more easy to look at. So saying GoBuster, calling the command, saying I want to perform a directory scan. I want to perform it on this URL. Well, let me just write it, 10.10.30.139, and I want to put a lot of different kind of words at the end of this. So it's gonna automate the URL guessing for us. We're gonna use something called a word list. A word list basically is a text file containing a lot of different words. You're gonna try to verify whether this folder exists or not exist on the server. Let's go ahead and point to user share word list directory, sorry, and then directory, and then use 2.3 medium, and that list basically gonna contain a lot of different things. Let me just copy paste this right now. Open a new tab for you, and let's do an open nano, which is a text editor, and paste that path in, press enter, and you can see that it contains a lot of different, index, images, downloads, blah 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 blah. And if we're lucky, at some point in this list, we will see the one called uploads, which of course is gonna be there, downloads, all different kind of weird names that developers use to hide them and their software behind on web pages. So we're gonna try all these different kind of things going on right there, and I'm gonna press page down right now, and you will see that there are so many. Now I'm not gonna bore you all the way down to the end, so let me just close it. So I'm gonna use this right now, and we're gonna look at this. It will run, and just right off the bat, it's gonna detect uploads. We know that. CSS, JavaScript. Okay, so there's a web page there. It seems like there's an actual web page, and there is something, right? Because we did verify this was right there, and going to page source, we can see the CSS folder and the JS folder. It found that already. But what more will it find? What more will it find? I'll find something called panel. And while this is running, we can go ahead and just verify panel. Alright, so we see something like that, that is a selected file to upload. And it kind of reminds me of, wow, so I can just press browse right now and upload something. Let me go to home, for example, and do business.txt, open that and press upload. And I did get this screen, I don't understand, but I guess it says success. So we can take this same URL and open one more time and go to uploads, as we know it's there, and see the file, and we can click it. And basically this is really good news for us. Let's go back to the scan one more time and see that we got nothing new so far. Let's go to the document and go down right here, and using GoBuster we found panel, and that actually enables us to upload a file. So what we need to do to verify now is, can we upload anything, and what is the language of the website that is programmed with. Now, can we see that by just verifying things? Are there anything we need to, can we just pretty easy see that? Now let's go to the front page, right? This is the one right there. Let's go to view page source and check all this out. Now there is no indication of any script file names. You could of course click different things. It's in error, it seems like. It does say Apache server, and in most occasions on Linux servers and Apache servers, it's a PHP language driven backend. But we need proof, right? So going to the web page itself, just like that, it's going to present us with a web page. And what we can do now is basically just go ahead and say index.php, and it works. So we know it's a PHP website right now. Now, how did I know I could write this? Well, web servers look for index names in the configuration file. And if I go ahead and press enter on the IP address, it basically means that there's an index file. Unless they changed it on the web server. And that is very, very weird to do. Never seen it, and I don't think it's gonna happen. But it might happen someday. Anyways, so I can verify that there is an index page and it is a PHP site. So what I'm gonna do right now is to try and upload a PHP file, because PHP is a script language. A script language basically means that if I click a file right here and it says PHP as the extension and there's code in it, it will be executed on the backend. So let's go ahead and go to let's stop this GoBuster scan. I think we got enough. In real scenarios, you should definitely leave it running. Anyways, let's go there. And we are right there with the business one. Let's go ahead and touch a file and call it test.php. Let's nano into test.php and write a small PHP script. Now, if you don't know PHP, it's okay. Let's write echo. It's working. And if we only see it's working on the screen and no other thing, it basically means we got code execution. So let's go ahead and go back and browse and upload the PHP file and see how it goes. Alright, so very first stop is saying, we cannot do that. I kind of think red and something with permit, something like that, is saying you cannot upload a PHP file, and the right is correct. Was no PHP file present right there. So what we're going to do now is try and do a standard PHP upload evasion technique. So you're going to go ahead and say which kind of, well, we can Google this because it would be easier probably for you to understand what's going on. So let's go PHP evasion upload, upload, and I would really like us to PHP evasion, PHP upload. Let me see, extension bypass. There we go. And the very first one is the one I think we should go ahead and check out. Upload by Hackstrix. Right here, it does talk about, and it's a bit heavy side to load. Let me see if I can. There we go. Okay. It does say right off the bat that there are different kind of PHP extensions that are allowed, and the most commonly one used is PHP, PHP 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, S, and another S, and PHP and PHTML and stuff like that. So we can go ahead and try different ones. I know, of course, which one works. The right way of doing this would to perform something called a fuzzing attack. Now, a fuzzing attack involves a lot of extra steps, which is creating and recording the actual traffic request that we send to the server, that we want to upload a file, and then in some way change the extension of the file on the fly. We can also go ahead and do this manually because this is an easy room. So just to give you the idea of how you do it manually, I'm going to do it for you. The easiest way is to go ahead and go to your terminal and try different kind of extensions in the name of, trying to keep the video short, which is already 43 minutes long, but I really hope you learned something already, is to go ahead and alter the name of this to that. The PHTML is the correct extension in this particular case. I know that, else you would have tried a lot of different kind of extensions without getting any success. So without doing that, let's go ahead and browse now and do PHTML and upload the file, and we see that it's actually working. Going to the uploads folder, we can see that it's right there. I can now click it and I see the thing, it's working. I can go ahead and right click and say page source, and we see that it's the only thing we see. So we know now, and we can verify that we got code execution. We can execute PHP code right on the backend, which is really nice. Really, I would say that is the best thing we could get. So now comes the question: what can we use that for? Well, many things. The best thing we can do right now is to do something called a reverse shell. Let's go back to the document of ours. We got there, we have PHP code execution, and we will try now a reverse shell. Okay. A reverse shell is basically a network connection that we're gonna initiate. And in order to explain that a bit better, I'm gonna open Paint, because Paint is the only tool that works. So we have our server right there, and this is us. A reverse shell is basically saying server connect to us, and we will say yes, and then we will connect back to that or accept the connection. Then we have a connection, and that would basically mean a reverse shell, because the reverse part of it is typically it is us requesting a connection and the server saying yes. But because there is no listening servers on this server or service, now like Skype for example, we have to do a reverse shell making the server connect to us. So we need to have something listening for that connection on our machine, and that we can do with a program called netcat. And so we will tell this machine here, hey, connect to, so I'm gonna write really beautifully here, connect to, and let's assume my IP address is 10.10.10.10. So it's connect to 10.10.10.10. That is what we're gonna tell it to, and we're gonna tell it to connect to a port 2, because we're gonna open a listener on port 5000 on our machine. So it's basically what we're gonna do. So open netcat, let me just write nc, and that's gonna listen for incoming connection. So it's basically just gonna listen right there and say, hey, anything coming in, and then the server's gonna pew with the sound of course connect to us, and we will just be happily to receive the connection. So the way we're gonna do that right now is go ahead and find a PHP script that can connect to us. Let's go to Google. PHP reverse shell. We're gonna go ahead and find one here on Pentest Monkey. Let's do that. And go to the PHP file right there. It's called PHP reverse shell. And click raw, because we want to see only the code. Copy paste URL. Go to terminal. wget is the command to download a file from a URL. Paste the URL, press enter, and now you have it on your machine right there. First of all, we need to rename it. So PHP reverse shell, it is too long. Let's just write shell PHTML. To verify the name is changed, go ahead and type ls, and it is right there. Now let's go ahead and say nano shell.phhtml. Go into it. Now we're gonna see a lot of PHP code right now, and the PHP code we're gonna see is basically a lot of things we don't need to worry about. The only thing we need to worry about is the IP address and the port number. And we know already that we need to connect to port 5000, so port 5000, and we need to connect to the IP address of ours. And my IP address is 10.11.10.220. I can see that up here. I can also go ahead and check it by other ways. But it's basically your own IP address you have through the OpenVPN connection that I have on this machine. Save it, close it down, go to the web page, browse, select the shell.phhtml, upload, click the button, it is there, verify, going one back, and we can see that there is a script right there. When I click that script, it will execute the code. Before we do that, we need to basically go to our machine, let me clear the screen, and do a netcat listener. And it's gonna listen on port 5000, just like that. And now we have a netcat listener listening on port 5000. When I click this file, it should get something back here, and we have a connection to the server. Click. So it is something like connection refused, and blah blah blah, and we're not really getting a connection back. There can be many different kind of reasons for that, and one of the reasons is that we did something wrong. We wrote something wrong in the reverse shell. It could be that our IP address was written wrong, or the port, or we need some extra flags in Netcat. Let's take one step back and verify, because that is also a very important part in pen testing, is to know what's going on. So let's do nano shell one more time. Scroll down a bit and check this out. So 10, 11, 10 to 20, and it is port 5000. Now we need to verify the IP address of mine. So let's go back to a terminal, type IP tag A, and check out the ton0 interface, which is the interface we got through the OpenVPN connection. And 10, 11, 10 to 20. Now this can vary a bit depending on which kind of machine you're on, but you can verify it's LO for loopback, it's our own network address, and the logical one eth0, and that is not the one. So it is 10, 11, 10 to 20, which also says on the top. And it is port 5000, so I think this is fine. So let's go ahead and close it down. And one more time, let's check out Netcat. We could go ahead and say, how much more and different flags do I need, and how would I verify which kind of flags I need? Typically I use the N one because we only need numeric IP addresses, so we can go ahead and say N also, so we can try L and N and see if that is the thing we need. Go back and update, and we got nothing back as a hit. So we need to find another way for us to get success. The way of reading these in Netcat commands, and it could be a bit difficult for us, is that we kind of verify that we need to listen to something, but what is it exactly we're doing here? We forgot one thing. We forgot to tell Netcat that we are listening on a specific port, because the connection is incoming to a specific port, right? So there's a flag for that. It's called P. So let's go ahead and clear screen now and do Netcat. And let's just try with LP and see if that works, right? Let's just try that because this is a part of it. And update. Now something different happened. Isn't this small thing like going back and forth? It basically means that the script is hanging. If the script is hanging, it basically means there's a connection. Let's check it out. We have a connection. We got something back. We got a ping back. Hey, we hacked the machine. We succeeded by using the mystical command of Netcat. So we got a reverse shell back. The server connected to us because we were listening. So it needs to know our IP address and the port we're listening on. And we got something like that, Linux, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we have a command prompt. I can write ID now. And I see that I am is user called data. Now, in order for us to do more, we need to do something called privilege escalation. And that is getting higher privileges on the server and obtaining root privileges. First of all, let's verify what we have. So we can ls, let's go to home folder. And what is that? We can see a directory called rootme and one called test. We can do rootme. And from here, we see nothing crazy going on. So we need to verify what's going on in the other folders now. So let's go ahead and check out the other things. Now, I want to say that there are many things you can do right now to escalate your privileges. You know, I just cannot say that we can go through all of them in this video because it's gonna be a wild long video. So what I'm gonna say right now is that you can go ahead and check out all the folders if you would like to do that. But what you typically do right now is what I'm gonna do. And that is go ahead and check if there is any binary files that we can execute. With the user we are, press ID. Is there any files as the user as www-data that we can go ahead and execute? as another user. That is basically what we try to do right now. And there is a way to do that. There is a command to search for these kind of things. And what we're going to do now is to search for files with the SUID bit set. The SUID bit is basically a way to give extra privileges to binary files so that lower privileged users can execute it in some way so they can use it. For example, if I needed to execute a particular binary file to access some resource that is for admin only, but I'm like a moderator, so I need some extra spies to do my job, then you create these kind of privileged binary files that can access or do more, and that is what we want to try and find. We want to do a server-wide sweep. We want to find every single one of those files on the server. There is a command, and the easiest way for you to find it is to go ahead and go to Google and say Linux, maybe type it correctly, Linux hacking find SUID file. And then basically, you know, the very first one right there, probably gonna do the trick. And just scroll down a bit, and you're gonna get a long tutorial here talking about how to do that. The command is right there. Let's copy paste it. Let's paste it in. So we're gonna say find from / in Linux. That is the most far away you can get. It's the same as C:\/ in Windows. We're gonna look for files right there that have the permission of the S bit set. Basically means the SUID bit is identified by an S on one of the 3 access groups you got to Linux right there. And all the files we try to verify the S bit on that we have no access to, we don't want to see any error messages, just want to see the files we have access to with SUID bit. Press enter and wait a bit now. And now we're going to get a list of files just in a second or two. And that list of files is going to be big or less big, or in this particular case was quite long. So let's go ahead and check out what we got. Now, so from the command and up right here, we got a lot of different kind of, this is a binary file, that is a binary file, this is a binary file, oh, that one, and oh, so many. So which one? That is the question. There's a web page that can help you with that. It's called GTFO bins. And the GTFO bins is it's gonna go ahead and give you the upper edge. You can go ahead and type in the binary file right here and see if there's anything you can do with it. Let's pick out, you know, something right now. Let's pick out this.
Du skal låse din iPhone op først.
Was my iPhone talking to me? Let's pick up this. Let's zoom in a bit. Paste it in. No binary files. So that was not the binary file. Let me, before I say too much, let's go back one more time and take the one called AT, for example. So AT. And it does say that AT got functionalities. Now think about it this way. GTFO bin is a website helping you to privilege escalate yourself to a higher privileged user on the system. Right. So that is actually exploits. Let's talk about functions, but it is exploits. Do we see the one called SUID as the one right there to the AT? We do not. So there is nothing for the AT binary file we can execute in terms of we're looking for SUID bit. So with the SUID bit, the super bit, whatever we're gonna call it, is not interesting for us at AT because it have no SUID bit execution. Now we can go through all these files one by one, take one of them, each of them, and paste it in GTFO bins and do the exact same thing. I will cheat now and say it is the one called Python we need to do it on. Copy paste it. That is going to give you a lot of different things. One of them is SUID, and that is the thing we're trying to exploit right now. We're going to exploit that this particular binary file called Python, which is also a scripting language interpreter, can be executed with a higher privileged user on the system. Let me prove that. So we have the path right there to Python. Let's go ahead and do ls tag al to that file, and we can see that this particular file can be executed as in the first user group with the s bit set. The owner of the file is root. Okay, I can see that the group also can be executed with that privilege, still root group, so it doesn't matter. So I can see that this file right here can be executed with the system rights of root. Could that be used for something? And it can. So what we can do right now is go ahead and click the SUID bit flag, link, whatever we're going to call the web page to Python, and it says SUID. If the binary has a SUID be set, it does. It does not drop the elevated privileges and may be abused to access the system, escalate or maintain privileged access as a SUID backdoor. Already read that right now. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Okay, if it is used to run sh tag p, omit the p argumented system like Debian, that allows the default sh shell to run with SUID privileges. So. This sentence basically say, if I spawn a new shell with a tag p through Python, it will spawn a shell with the same privileges as the file. That is root. So basically, does that mean that I'm gonna get a root shell right now? The example creates a local SUID copy of the binary and runs it to maintain elevated privileges. To interact with the existing SUID binary, skip the first command, which is this one right there, and run the program using its original path. Let's copy paste this into our document. Alright, so we're gonna go to exploit, and we found Python with the SUID, and we can execute this command. The original path to this is not that. The original path is that one. Let's copy paste that. Go here, replace the path, execute Python, tag C, import, blah blah blah, execute this with the sh shell with the capitalized P. Let's copy paste this command. And now the magic is, we're gonna go ahead and basically paste it in, press enter, and we like, oh, nothing happened, it's just another no, right ID. What you see? You see stuff like root now, the user ID, right? Who am I? You just won. You just hacked the server. That is the way to execute abusing binary files with the SUID bit. So, one step back, let's talk about this for just a second before we end the video. We started out with a basic reconnaissance. We talked about the open ports, we talked about the services, we searched for the services and if there's any associated exploits to the versions of those services. We fingerprinted the operating system, verified this is most likely a Linux server running. We found early on in the recon an uploads folder, which kind of took it to the place that maybe we can upload a file, and we could upload a file. Then we started GoBuster scanning. We searched for different kind of URLs. We found the panel, and that allowed us to upload a file, actually to rename a PHP file to PHTML, and to get remote code execution, which is win. We by that got a reverse shell. We searched the system. We found that we could execute Python as root, and with that we can spawn a new shell, easy peasy lemon squeezy, and then get a root shell, and we win in the server right now. There was a really long video, and we got through it all. We did the room, we hacked the server. This is newbie serious, and I really hope you enjoy the length, the in-depth explanations, and the way that I did it. So if you did that, please go ahead and like the video, comment below, and if you feel like it, you can always subscribe to my channel. And there are other ways of supporting me as well. You can just check it out by going to the description of the video, and you will find the info you need. Until next time, I will see you again. Stay on the side of the law. Don't conduct any pen test on real servers. Do it on virtual servers that is not a real server. Alright? See you again. Happy hacking.